Well, I will say this. The last couple days been extremely energetic, even though I heard a few intonations, a few tones that were ringing a little bit here and there, but nothing astronomical. But I know that my dog is going through an evolution. Like, we're revisiting the past. And that's why I wrote that post about suffering and how I'm really angry at the system that kept overbreeding animals and overbreeding humans and causing so much surgical trauma, so much wartime trauma, so much violent trauma, and humans are suffering because when the climate changes, they can't handle the trauma that comes to surface, and they keep stuffing it back inside, and the trauma cannibalizes them. Now, what is this trauma? It's Hydra that have been traumatized. Hydra cells. You have 69 trillion microbial cells that go through great experiences, that go through horrible experiences, that go through traumatic experiences, go through exciting times, best of times, worst of times, okay, Tale of Two Cities. And so when you're feeling the body trying to release that trauma from the body, and then you keep stuffing that trauma back inside, then what else is that trauma, that energy, that Hydra going to do? They're going to cannibalize you. And so that's what pain is. It's releasing the trauma. And every time you go under a knife, every single time you take an anti-inflammatory, every single time you go through another bad relationship that ends up in trauma, you have now compounded the trauma in your body, that if you ever want to become whole again, you will have to revisit every single thing that you ever experienced that was so traumatic that warranted you to do some kind of therapy or surgery or lifestyle change. And so that's what we're experiencing today as far as in the JJ world. People are re-experiencing the trauma, but now the trauma is going to work for them because they're going to release it and rebuild better memories, not shitty memories. And so how I figured this out, because I'm watching my dog go through her evolution. I saved her from basically the brink of death over Thanksgiving. She was set to die. Her time was basically out. But what saved her? When I was giving her the milk way back a couple months back, before she then got tired of the milk and cereal. But I was giving her milk. She was lapping up milk every day. I was giving her all my people food because she wasn't really eating her own dog food. I was giving her the steak, I was giving her chicken, I was giving her pork, I was giving her milk, I was giving her cereal, I was giving her everything I could under the sun because she didn't have a taste for her food anymore because there wasn't enough nutrients. The nutrients were in the actual people food. And so, but she had babies in her body. She had little babies in her body called microbial offspring that needed to also be fed. But prior to this going on, before I got her, they did a lot of surgeries on her. I don't know how many of them. They did a whole bunch of surgeries on her, removing tumors, removing cancers. And you can kind of, before now her changes, you can see the scars. And then when I press on her belly a little bit, you can actually feel what I thought was scar tissue. Because we know that people get keloids. What are keloids? They're scar tissue that develop every single time the body undergoes some kind of traumatic surgical experience, and then it keloids. It brings up new growth, more growth, and then people have to go and surgically take that out again, and then it grows back again. And keloids are another disease. It's overgrowth, and it's reaction to trauma. Well, no, it was her little tumor cancer that was growing. As soon as that person, that surgeon, that veterinarian cut out that tumor out of her body, it started regrowing again. But it was growing slower, and they were giving her, I'm sure, anti-inflammatories. They were giving her painkillers. They were giving her antibiotics. Okay? And so she, I'm sure, recovered at the animal shelter from that surgery, because I'm sure it wasn't her prior owners that gave her the surgery and then took her back and then gave her up again. No, I think they gave her up or let her run off because she had the tumor and they didn't want to do anything about it. They couldn't afford to. And so then it was given up to the shelter, and the shelter took care of it. And then the shelter went and adopted it out. And then I received her. So now we are experiencing that little tumor again, but it's a little big, but not horrifically big. Yes, there's some inflammation. That's good. It's her immune system is now working on it. Now, I went through my suffering the other day when I'm like, Jesus Christ, what is the deal? And I'm like, oh shit, that's right. Whenever you cut out something, whenever you cut off something, even landscapers know this, when you trim something, it grows back stronger, grows back bigger. But remember, this is not just a tree limb. This is not, an organ. This is a cancer, a tumor that if it's starved, then it will cannibalize the body and kill the actual host, the parent cell. But when you feed both the cancer and you feed both the tumor, you feed both the whatever, and you feed the parent, you are now arming the parent to then eventually tame that beast within. And who knows how long that will take. But that's the thing with humans. When humans undergo plastic surgery, and you know how many humans out there in Hollywood undergo plastic surgery, you think they want to do the JJ world? It will be painful because they will revisit every single incision their plastic surgeon ever did. Anyone that went under heart surgery, went under appendectomies, tonsillectomies, any kind of surgery where someone came in and interfered with Mother Nature, they're going to have to revisit that and deal with whatever growths that happen. And you can't stop it. See, what I was thinking, that's why I went online, was looking at stuff, looking up what all that could be, the things are growing. And I'm like, fuck. And they give you the worst case scenario because it's all based upon a closed system. Yeah. When you have, little tumors and you have little cancers, you have little things that go on, and you have a closed system and you let them metastasize. Yeah. When they burst or rupture inside, they can destroy the host. They can destroy the parent cells. But when you have an open system, you have now an access to release. That's the key thing about the JJ world, is you have to develop a release process. You have to open up everything. Your lymph nodes up here, your diaphragm. You have to understand your sphincter to release the fucking demons. You have to allow yourself to sweat. You have to allow the body to release, because what goes on when you have cancer, disease, and chronic illness and autoimmune disorders, and people die from this, because they have a closed system, because there is no place for those little fuckers to be released. And traditional bathroom habits, again, are not enough. And people are actively closing their system up with their deodorants and their antiperspirants and all their anti-inflammatories and their Mucinex and their NyQuil and their Dayquil and all that stuff. And so, yeah, they will have a short lifespan because they're not releasing the beast. They're not releasing the trauma that's in their body. And that's what goes on. When people experience trauma, whatever it is, whether it's you read something, whether someone hit you, whether it's an F on a paper, or someone left you, all that trauma has to be dealt with, and it has to be released, but not released in a way like, okay, I'm going to go to the gym and go work it out. No, your body has to actually you have to actually shit it out, but you have to pull it out sometimes. You actually have to blow the trauma out of your nose. Maybe you have to cry it out. I've cried before, so that was a lot of relief for me. And so my dog, so now I've lowered the bed, so now I have only the mattress. Because yes, we're in right now aggressive climate change. Even I'm feeling stiff. I'm feeling sore, okay? Well, and also because I'm going up and down the stairs. I know that with her growth and everything, it's kind of making her a little bit shaky on the back end, so she's not as strong. But I know that I have to deal with this growth until the body then finally releases it, and the body finally can work on it and deplete it. And so during this climate change, I've been lowering the bed and letting her now figure out how she's going to fight this, and that's with food, okay? I mean, with myself, I'm helping her release with her anal glands. I'm feeding her everything in a bottle. I'm not even trying to give her any more adult food. I'm going to let this thing finally go down to its regular size and even disappear. And then we'll see how she walks and how everything else. Right now she's in a transitional stage, and you can't cut this shit out, because what happens when I was going to Googling everything, I realized I'm doing the same thing everybody else is doing out there. How do you stop this? How do you stop that? How do you get rid of this? And they're like, oh yeah, you gotta go get surgery. You gotta go get this. Here, take this and put topical on this. And I'm like, and I fell into that for a minute. And that's why I put together the olive oil. So I feel like I had to do something, right? I put together olive oil, salt, and flour. And I'm like, okay, I could rub it on there, which I have. I mean, sometimes it gets red, and she's not whining. You hear her, she's not whining. She's not in any pain. But like me, I'm suffering because I'm like, fuck, you know, I'm not used to seeing this. This is a change. This is like so out of my realm of like fucking normal. And that's what the suffering is in humans when they see something that isn't like normal to them, and they think it's, oh my God, and they think the worst. They don't think about what's going on. They think what's going to happen. But you don't know if it's going to happen, but you think it's going to happen because you were told it's going to happen. But what if it's not going to happen? What if it's just a process you have to go through and let it see itself through? And you keep feeding the energy. You don't try to resist it. You don't try to fight it. You don't try to surgically take it out, but you deal with it, because the reason why it's there was because they didn't deal with tumors properly to begin with. When you're cutting into yourself, when you're attacking yourself, you are causing trauma to yourself. And then you're asking the medical and the holistic system to enact trauma upon you, enact upon trauma upon your children. And so then when they finally want to have a chance to become whole again, they're going to have to revisit all this trauma. And can you imagine when you allow a kid to get breast implants, when you allow a kid to go get, you know, all these transitional surgeries, and then they finally say, okay, you know, that was just, you know, a passing phase. And now I want to become an adult and become whoever it is I am. I don't want to go get surgery or do this or do that. And they're going to have to feel the pain of every single incision. They're going to have to feel the burning pain of the area where they were cut into. They feel the pain of regrowth when tonsils were taken out, when appendixes were taken out, when thyroids were taken out, when livers were taken out, when everything has been taken out. And now they want to become whole again. You know how fucking awful that's going to be? They're not going to want to do it. And then they will eventually be like, you know what? Fuck it. I will live out my very short lifespan in this environment. And that's the depopulation agenda. Getting you used to being under some kind of trauma. Especially surgical trauma. Because I'm telling you, I mean, I can only imagine. I mean, she was acting wacky the other night. That's why I had to lower the bed, because she kept flinging herself off the fucking bed. Because what is she's trying to get comfortable, and so she would kind of veer to the left. But last night she was fine. But it was Saturday night when the frequencies, I guess the frequencies were pretty crazy, because I was up all freaking night. She finally, you know, was able to go back to sleep. But but then I and that thing, you know, was like that. And that's the thing, is that we're revisiting the past. I am seeing what she was before I got her. Before they did surgery to her. Everything that you cut out grows back, and it grows back stronger. But remember, with an immune system, with a parent cell and a child cell, if the parent is fed effectively and fed strongly, and the parent knows what to do, and I'm the parent as well as she is, I'm pulling out the programming. I don't mind expressing her anal glands, which I'm doing like on a daily basis, because I need to make sure that shit's out. That, you know, and there's a way to do it, and it's not invasive when you think about it, but it really is. It's helping that poop come out, and it's all pasty. It's not the yellow. It's not the brown goop that it was a couple days ago. It's not the yellow stuff that it was like a couple weeks ago, when I first expressed her anal glands for the first time on my own. I mean, it's now finally. It's like we're in some kind of a system, and I'm putting everything in a blender. I mean, everything. I put the dog food, both the dry kibble and the wet kibble, and the milk, and any leftover meat and eggs and whatever, and I put it all in the blender and blend it up, and with some bananas and cabbage and some spinach, and I just bottle feed her, and that's how she gets that micronutrients. That's how she gets the bioavailable food to feed her. And to feed that thing that will eventually diminish in size, because it will at some point. The reason why it's there is because the body figured out how to siphon off the bad guys, okay, how to corral them, and now it's just systematically working on that thing. And so, like, just like when you corner an enemy and you get them all into this little area, and then you systematically pick them off one by one. I mean, that's all the art of war, is you ambush your enemy and get them in a place where they're backed into a corner, and then you just pick them off one by one. Well, that's what's going on right now. That's what cancer is. It's the body saying, okay, if you're not going to release it, if you're not going to allow me to release these little fuckers, then we got to corral them somewhere. Okay? And when they corral them somewhere, they turn into growths. Now, if you corral them and you let them metastasize and metastasize and you don't do anything about it, and you don't open the system up so the body can release them, then yeah, they then eventually ruptures. The enemy is then escapes the gates, and they go and cannibalize and destroy their opponents. And that's why people die from ruptured masses, because they have not opened the system to release. And so it's really convenient now that I am opening her system up. Okay, now that I've opened her system up, and she's releasing. Now the body is comfortable enough to develop that mass, so when it finally needs to be released, it has ways to go. It has places to go. It trusts that it's going to be taken care of. Okay? That's the thing, is that the body has to trust that there's somebody that knows better and that will assist it releasing the babies. Just like you need a midwife, you need a doctor, you maybe need a friend to help you out and pull out your baby if you're pregnant. Well, yeah, you know, when you're doing your poops every day, you have to help the poop out sometimes. You have to actually assist your body in releasing. You can't just trust the muscles that you have in your body that has been atrophied for years to push everything out. No, you have to find ways to be strategic in helping those little fuckers to come out, because they will terrorize you, and they are. Just look out there, these kids that are violent against their own parents. These kids that are violent against other adults. Especially parents, because parents are the ones that are laying down the law, and these kids have no fear of authority anymore. They don't. Let me tell you, I've met some pretty interesting kids in my life, and some of them I question the future for them as far as anyone crossing them, because we are breeding some pretty interesting offspring out there. And it's because the system didn't know how to release. The system just kept breeding and breeding and breeding and breeding. And we're breeding cancer, disease, chronic illness, as well as serial killers and people with deficiencies that then will glom onto somebody else and siphon their life force out of them. And it could be in many different ways. And so right now, what's going on politically is what's going on microbially in people's bodies. We're revisiting all the trauma. That's why we revisited all the civil rights stuff back in 2019, 2020, when we had all the different riots. Yeah, we're revisiting a lot of the past. We're revisiting so much stuff because we got to. You got to revisit the past to finally have some kind of tolerance, diversity, and some kind of change, because obviously we can't go the way we've been going with so much of the bullies and the intolerance and the homogenization of humans that don't understand diversity, don't understand that someone's going to have a different lifestyle. And even I had to learn that. Let me tell you, even for myself, I had to learn tolerance, because I tell you, I had a lot of intolerance. And I still find myself getting to that point. I still find myself to be a little bit intolerant in my head, but I don't act out upon it. I don't say too much. I can't save anybody. That's the thing. When you want to go and give someone a suggestion, that's kind of a saving thing. You're trying to save somebody. And I've had to learn how to pull back on that. And even though you're coming from a good place, remember, the road to hell is paved by good intentions. You know, people will save you to death and say they saved you, all that stuff. Because even if you try to save somebody and they still end up doing whatever they want to do, and you think they're listening to you and they're not, and they end up dead anyways, and you're like, what the fuck, you know? And it's really not because of you. It's because they weren't going to be converted. You can't convert anybody. But you can be a representation. That's the only way you really can get the word out, is when you are the representation of your world. And again, you can't make somebody understand or want to be, you know, alive or be whatever. You can't take away politics, religion, science from people who have that embedded. You can't. I mean, believe me, I've tried. And I can't even take it all out of myself either, because I am pro-life. I am pro-life. You know, it kind of reminds me of, it's weird. I mean, I understand, you know, what's that guy's name? Was it Ted Bundy? Or was it Dahmer? Now, this is weird. Why am I finding it's like some kind of kindred with Dahmer? No, because he didn't want his people to leave him. That's the reason why he like killed them, and he kept their body parts, because that way they never left. They never left, right? You know, so I understand that. You know, you don't want to be abandoned by people. You don't want to go through that process of having people come in your life and then go, come and go. And so instead of feeling that pain of coming and going, you just don't really, you know, do too much with people who you already know are going to leave anyways, right? And death is an obvious, in this environment, death isn't obvious. People are going to leave anyways. And so if I'm going to keep people around me, then I'm going to keep like my dog, and I got to keep it alive, and I got to make sure to find to keep it alive. And so, cause I don't want my dog to leave me. Okay. So I'm going to keep it alive. And so that's the thing. I already saved my dog's life. Now it's just making sure she gets fed and make sure she releases those demons and make sure she faces everything that the medical system and the veterinary system have cut out of her. Because the reason why she had that to begin with, because she had a closed system and they were giving her, I'm sure, were antibiotics, and she was exposed to other dogs, and she kept that antigen antibody programming that was anomalous, and she didn't release. And so that's why she had those tumors to begin with. And so now we have to finally deal with them, which means we have to actually face them and respect them and feed them. And eventually the body will work them out of the body. And you have to have an open system to do that. You can't do that with a closed system, because where are those little babies going to go? They will turn into have to in the medical system, where you're like, oh God, I got to get the surgery taken out because you don't have an immune system enough to dissolve it. And so even though we're in uncharted territory, it makes sense. Which is why a lot of people are not going to do the JJ world. Because when they realize they're going to have to revisit every single time they went through plastic surgery. So when you get plastic surgery and you get your lips enlarged, and then you go to the JJ world, and now you don't want to do any more medical holistic, and you have to revisit everything that you ever done. And that also means your lips are going to be offline. Everything that you ever done is going to be offline for a while. And you're going to probably look a little monstrous. That's the suffering, is that humans have to pay for the sins of their father. What do you mean sins of the father? Because 6 years ago, you know, the skin on your lips are like the generations of offspring from whatever you did 6 years ago under the knife from the doctor's office. And so then if you want to become whole again, you're going to have to revisit what happened 6 years ago on your mouth. And that means you have to pay, you have to now experience, you know, you are paying the price, the sins of the father. And so anything that your parents ever did to them, okay, they have developed that hydra, that traumatized energy that was bred into your fecal plug that then became your programming. And so that's why, you know, the sins of the father, that's why people are paying for the sins of their father and their mother, but same thing. And so humans are now paying the price for everything they ever did to anyone out there. Humans today are paying the price for past mistakes. And if you want to live, if not indefinitely, you have to pay the price for every single thing that you did to yourself, traumatizing yourself, and everything that your parents did to themselves. Okay? And everything that they did to you too. You're going to pay the price for that. And I have been. That's why the last couple years was like completely like a whole becoming finally, I don't say clear, but finally dealing with everything that ever plagued me, that ever I had a question about. I have now figured it all out. And then I put it in a book so you can see this is the journey that first you have to figure out that first you have to know that your hydra, your energy, you are experiences, and some of them are traumatized, and you have to release them. You have to have an open system. And this is why you have sexual orientation, because you have a closed system and things want to replicate and fornicate and they come out in interesting ways. And that's called diversity. And you can't say it's not natural, because everything is natural. It's just now we have also the laws that also come in play because of age and all that. We have to have some kind of order. Okay. And so, you know, the whole JJ world is a whole lot more than what people, oh my God. And so, yeah, I can now understand why some people would not want to do this, because if their whole life is predicated upon looking cute and looking beautiful, going through the ugly duckling stage, like I went through the ugly duckling stage, is not, they can't see it. Like I'm watching Too Hot to Handle on Netflix. And it's all about young millennials or even younger than that. And they're all into their sexual stuff. And they look chiseled or look skinny. And they're all about sex this, and pretty bodies and big boobs and nice butts and pecs and calves and all that and nice hair. Can you imagine that, you know, if they went through all the plastic surgery, if they went through some trauma, and this is what they do for a living, is to sell their bodies on TV as an entertainment piece, going through whatever programming they're doing, you'd really have to be out of the limelight for many years. And even then, when you finally assimilate to the current environment, is it going to allow you to look the way you did before you let yourself get back to your prototype? And that's the thing. Like, I don't look like I did back in my 20s. I don't. I mean, I think I finally have matured, but I will not go back to those years where I had the long black hair, maybe in a slower environment, and the particles have slowed down and I'm still eating the same way. I'm sure I'll get my hair back, but in this environment, this high heat, no. And who knows how long we're going to be in this climate change, okay? It could be for 20 years, could be for 10 years. It could be until we get to 500 million per the Georgia Guidestones. And so, so in a slower environment, I could probably bring myself back to my 20s. But in this environment, it is a constant morphing, a constant evolution. And you will constantly be going through heat and changes and mucus and whatever. But it's worth it. And you'll constantly be, taking on weight and releasing weight, because when you're developing growth because of the frequency changes and you're around diversity, you're taking on offspring that have to be released, that they also have to assimilate and be released. And then in the process, you're also innovating. You're also producing. You're also doing stuff with that process, with that whole experience. And so that's exactly what's going on right now, is that my dog is going through her evolution, revisiting the past. And I'm writing about it because let me tell you, I couldn't plan this if I tried. Let me tell you, when my publisher is saying, well, I'll give you, like, what do you say? We'll give you a free, press release if you get this done by November 11th. And I couldn't get it done by because I wasn't done yet. And I wasn't going to put out crap just to get a free press release, right? And so finally, with that pressure, I finally got it done the next week. And so I didn't get that free product out of it, but that's okay. I'm fine with it. But then, right then, my dog started going downhill. And right before Thanksgiving, when things were going with that exponential, and then of course you're saying now we're in a triple-demic, RSV, COVID, and flu. Okay, and so then my dog started, and so then now my whole world and JJ world is now geared towards the animals, and the animals are going to tell us a lot about ourselves. Because right now, learning about my dog Sugar is then going to tell you how you're going to have to deal with stuff, trauma from the past. Whatever it is, because she's dealing with trauma from the past that I didn't do to her, and they didn't know any better, right? But but that's the thing. So yeah, traumatic experiences. Anytime you go into the knife and you want to finally face your demons and the past, the given life that has been bestowed upon you, you must revisit everything you did to your body that was violence against it. You must revisit almost every traumatic experience, and you will. Oh, you fucking will. And some people, well, some of it's going to be really hard. You're going to be going through some shit. Okay, I tell you, I went through a lot of hell going through every single traumatic experience. And so, it's not for the faint of heart to rewind. It's easy to keep moving forward and then just die with all those traumatic memories just stuffed somewhere inside. But, once you open the genie in the bottle, you can't really stuff it back in. I mean, you can, but then you die from it. That's the thing about stuffing the genie back in the bottle. You have to let the genie release. And so right now I'm letting the genie release and let the genie just do its thing. Let this thing just be what it is. My dog's walking fine. She's not whining. She's not in pain. I don't have to give her anything. For me, it was more for me putting the olive oil and the salt on her than it was for her because she wasn't in any pain. I think when I gave her some of the cabbage with the stuff, she had a little error because there was a lot of fiber, and so she was whining for a minute, and then she burped, and then she stopped whining. So I think she had a little gas. And then after that, she hasn't had an issue with any food that I've given her with the milk as the base. And so milk is the everything. Milk is everything. And I don't understand why kosher separates the meat and the milk, because when you think about it, that is the concoction for you and for your animal. If you want to nurse yourself back to life and your animal back to life. And I'll tell you, when you're expressing your dog's anal glands and they have the same kind of sphincter stuff, that poop does come out. But sometimes, you know what happens when you leave poop in your system too long, and especially if your body isn't trained to release and it's going through an evolution, you have to train things to release. And so during this process, it is programming yourself and programming your dog to release. And that's what is saving her, is the fact that I'm feeding her at least a pint 3 times a day. So 2 pints is a quart. So she gets about a quart and a pint. Maybe she doesn't do 3 times. Sometimes it's twice a day. So she'll get about a quart a day, maybe a little bit more of all of those nutrients. And so when you look at the nutrients, you look at them, they're all just so microscopic. They're so small. But those are small enough to feed the microbes in the body. It's all broken down and the body just processes. So yeah. And so it's easy for her to process. And so then her muscle memory is on point. I mean, she'll be stiff when she wakes up, but she's not, it's not taking her a long time to remember stuff. And she is telling me she has to pee as well. So this morning when we got up, she was in her position at the end of the bed. And that's why I lowered the bed, because I didn't want her falling off the bed. Because she did fall off the bed the other day and it was loud. And that's why we got to lower the bed because this is insane. And I got her a doggy bed for downstairs because the couches are too high. And when she goes and tries to do stuff, I don't want her falling off the couch by mistake. Hold on a second. Just hold that thought about the bed. Hold that thought about the bed. Hold on. Hey, I'm on Facebook Live. What's up? You're on Facebook Live.
Nothing. I'll call you back.
Are you sure you're okay?
Yeah.
It's not an emergency?
No.
Okay. All right. Bye. Bye. So it's not an emergency. But when she fell off the bed, that's why I lowered the bed. So then this morning, when she, so we got a doggy bed to come down here. But anyways, she let me know she had to pee. That's when she gets off the bed. That's when she has to pee. She didn't pee in the bed because she could have. She didn't, even when I let her walk around for a minute just to get her bearings, to get her legs, all whatever, she could have peed in the corner. That's why I have also that rubber thing there, so that way she doesn't pee in that place. So that's why that's there. It's kind of weird, but then, so she doesn't pee, even the bathroom. She peed in the bathroom before a couple of days ago, but that was because she really had to, and I wasn't getting her downstairs fast enough. But even then, when I get her downstairs, she doesn't pee anywhere down on the floor here. She goes outside. Sometimes she'll pee on the landing, but I got her onto the actual deck and she pee on the deck. Sorry. Ugh, my nose is itchy. But anyways, so she's let me know she has to pee. She's holding her pee in. So she's getting memories and getting some kind of conditioning for that. And that's awesome, because I'll tell you, she was winding down. She was regressing the last couple years. You saw me going oh gosh, she keeps missing the bed. Oh gosh, now I took the bed down to the box springs into the mattress. And so no more frame. And so then, and then now it's down to the mattress where she can just get on without really doing too much. And now it's going to be building her back up again. Okay, and that's kind of what's going on right now, is that we're revisiting the past. She's down to her puppy stage. Okay, we got to revisit the little freaking tumor that they cut out of her a couple, 8 years ago or whatever, 10 years ago. And I'm feeding it. Like I told you guys, you feed the cancer, you feed the tumors, you feed everything, and then you let your body release. Let your immune system work on the stuff. Feed your body bioavailable food, so you give it and arm it with everything. And then you have to feel the heat. You got to. Oh my God, my nose. Ugh. Oh, hold on. Something is itching my nose. Little fucking Hydra. Sorry. But, yeah. And so, if I were you, I would warn your children, if you go under the knife, you will pay for it later. When you finally want to become whole again, and it's not all about looking cute and looking whatever, when you finally want to become whole again, you will have to revisit the pain of that incision. Seriously. You will. I mean, is she in pain from that incision? Well, she's getting whatever that growth that was taken out. She's getting it again. I'm sure there's a little pain in that, but not so much that she's suffering, but people, how people are, they can't handle any kind of uncomfortableness. So can you imagine? Can you imagine? Yeah, so I don't really foresee the shallow Hollywood doing this, because unless they really have a penchant for pain and a penchant for now finally just being a normal person, not some starlet, not some program starlet. But yeah, now you're seeing, the programming in people. And you see then the lay people wanting to be like Hollywood, and they will end up hurting themselves. And then finally realize that it's not all about looking a certain way. It's about intellect. It's about survival, intellect, and innovation. And you don't really need your looks. But remember, we also were in a society where everyone wanted to get married and have a bunch of babies, and so you had to look a certain way to do that. And that's why Kinsey Institute trying to figure out sexual whatever, so people learned how to ensnare each other and then be that stable platform, so that way daddy can go to work or mommy can go to work, and the kids are being taught in a government school system. And that was the society that we lived in. Now it's changing. Now everything's changing. So, all right, I wanted to do this video just to tell you that, yeah, you're going to have to revisit everything. You're going to have to. And when you think about it, politics, religion, and scientific dogmas have nothing to do with revisiting trauma, your own trauma. If anything, they've contributed to the trauma that you've been undergoing. And when you realize it's really about you, it's not about anybody else, when you can't save anyone else but yourself, you will have to deal with your own trauma. You're going to have to deal with your own sins that you've done against yourself. And your children have to bear out their own sin that they've done against themselves. And if you, a parent, are the representation of how to deal with the sins in your body, when you think about it, maybe they'll take cues and save themselves. But it will take a parent. It will take a parent. Because even a kid can be a parent, because they'll be a parent to their own selves. And so it means each human is a representation of whatever they believe. And so if you understand life, that you have to feed life and release it. You don't commit violence against it. You don't cut into it. You don't bully it. You respect it. And you understand that life has its own competing forces. But you are the parent. You have the most control if you feed it. And so, which means that any kind of out of controlled entity in your body will eventually be overwhelmed by the parent at some point. But you got to give time to that parent, because that parent has to now retrain the whole body how to release and how to take on energy and take on good memories, not traumatic memories anymore. Diversity is great, but you've got to be able to manage it. All right, bye.